Hi, I'm Paul.
And I'm Tiffany.
To some, we could be called career wizards.
And to others, sometimes we seem like therapists. However, we definitely are not.
But for you, we are the co hosts of the Career Boosters podcast.
None of that matters. It really doesn't. If you want to get ahead, if you want to move, if you want to focus or develop more in a certain role, it's the networking that will get you there.
Hello and welcome to the Career Boosters podcast, season 2, episode 21. Today, we are talking all things networking, starting conversations with things like the weather, the local sports team, or what do you do for work? Well, these things are a bit awkward sometimes. Today, we are very excited to welcome Joe Harb, a second-year MBA student, to our show to talk about how he's networked and talk about how this networking has helped him navigate recruitment processes, his career, and overall just build great relationships with not only his classmates, but people from all different industries and globally as well. This week in class, with MBA students, we went through things like small talk, building relationships, navigating challenging body language situations, and so much more. And we'll try to cover most of those things today. But overall, we just want to talk with Joe around the importance of networking and building solid professional relationships. So, Joe, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And the first question we have: what is the story behind your decision to embark on an MBA journey right now?
Well, thanks for having me.
Mhm.
And to answer the question, the story, without giving away too much about what's to follow, was to expand my network. Oh, surprise. I have a BCom from the U of A, and I've been working in very specific industries for the past 12, 13 years. And I was also living in Vancouver for the past 8 years. So when I moved back to Edmonton, I needed to find a new job. I needed to expand my network. And I thought, hey, there's this MBA that I've been wanting to get. So I figured, why not? So a large part of the story about doing my MBA was to expand my network and to meet great people. I know there was a lot of resources at the university, especially at the School of Business, and I wanted to throw myself in there and expand my network.
You know, Joe, you weren't in class on Monday now that you are the second year, but funny enough, on in class on Monday, we talked about networking happens in all sorts of places. And we seem to think that networking is this: I have to go to a multi-hundred person event, be super uncomfortable, shake a million sweaty hands, and that's what networking is, which doesn't sound really fun for most people. But we talked about that you can be networking when you're playing sports. You can be networking when you're meeting new classmates. And you just talked about you can be networking by simply going back to university. And so I love that demonstration. And I think you have to be one of the first that truly has highlighted the MBA as a reason and tool to network and build a community and relationships, which I think is really cool and makes you perfect here to chat with us today. So take us back. Year and a half ago, you started the MBA, and we start like day one talking about building relationships. We try not to use the networking word too quickly because nobody likes it. But day one, building relationships. Tell me about your comfort with that way back then.
I would say due to the nature of my work, I thought I was quite comfortable with networking. Um, One thing that I've realized though after that class and being in the program for the last year and a half was all of those interactions that I did have, all of my previous networking, not all of them, but most of them, was premeditated. I was offering something or I needed something specific. So when I'd be talking to people, there's something that would lead me to that conversation and allow me to network, which is fantastic. It's kind of easy, it makes you more comfortable. Jumping into the MBA, I was in a room full of complete strangers. There had been maybe one or two meetings beforehand, virtual meetings where I got to see some of the classmates that I'd be, with for the program. But I didn't know anything else. I tried to search. I tried to search for names. I tried to search for do my homework. Who am I going to be? Who's going to be in my class? This is exciting. I haven't done this in a long time. And then the first day that I got to that orientation, yeah, I was pretty nervous. So I thought my comfort level was high, but it was maybe not as high as I thought.
Tell me a little bit, though, you just alluded to your line of work. What is it that you had done that gave you that assumed confidence coming into the MBA, which, of course, you've now just said was maybe not quite what you expected?
Oh, of course. I was in sales and marketing for the majority of my life. So yes, something that you definitely need to uh, build relationships. You need to build a network. It's very critical, very important. And it's something that you have to practice on a daily basis. You have to approach people that either really like you, that want your business, but also people that don't like you or maybe don't want to hear from you. So being able to approach them and strike up a conversation and be comfortable with that is really important. So that's why there was that level of confidence. But it's always something that can be worked on and improved.
I appreciate that you just normalized that people we think should be good at networking also are nervous, find pockets where they're actually not comfortable. I think we look at some people that work a room really well or just come across as confident. And I know Paul and I have been semi accused of this. You're so confident. How could you be nervous? And so I appreciate you normalizing that not everybody is all the time and that there's always pockets that are just new for you. But I'll pass it off to Paul. I've been hogging the mic a little bit.
No, that's okay. I think, I was going to add in that it is very true. It's, someone that could come across in a very confident way may not feel that way and may be struggling with their own types of anxiety or nervousness. And I know for myself, whenever I go to those big person events, it is nervous for me. And I know Tiffany, it's not as so for you. So it is different for every person. So Joe, really networking is simply building relationships and that is in an authentic way for you. How has your perception of what kind of networking has changed at all since orientation and what we've had kind of discussions about?
Yeah, well, to be honest, the value and importance hasn't changed. So it's a yes and no answer. I believe it's very important, and um, it's very important. And the fine dance about approaching people not in your network has changed, though. So it is possible to ask someone or reach out to someone to network with, and it might not seem obvious as to why you're reaching out. I'm not going to approach someone on LinkedIn or in person and say, "Hey, do you have any jobs that I could possibly apply for?" But there is a fine dance about just expanding your network and meeting someone new and trying to extract information. And it can be a give and take process. If I'm going to network with somebody, they're well, if they're good networkers, they'll probably ask me, "Hey, what's your story?" And I'll get to give that back. And there is that back and forth, and then down the road, there is lots of valuable information to extract. So the value and importance hasn't changed. The fine dance about approaching people not in my immediate circle has changed.
Can you tell us how you've done that? I think there's some obvious ones. We've already referenced big networking events already. That's one. Great, sure. But in the last year and a half, tell me other ways, maybe even interesting or unexpected ways that you've been networking.
Hmm. That's an interesting question. There's just so many different new scenarios that I've been put into. And one thing, since the MBA program or class, we have domestic and international students. And being able to see how cultural differences play into networking has been eye-opening for me. And it's been kind of a wake-up call. Canadians, we tend to kind of keep to ourselves. And from traveling and from my classmates who I've learned so much from, there is that being comfortable, being able to just strike up a conversation anywhere, or if there is something that attracts or sparks some kind of curiosity inside of you, that you go and chase it and you find it, and you dig into that. And if there's someone, if it's about them and what they've done with their life and work, or if there's something physical on them, even, why not approach them and just strike up a conversation? And that might not seem, kind of new uh, or revolutionary, but for me, it's been a big impactor on how I approach networking.
Yeah. Joe, I will sneak you into the mind of Paul. I look at people's feet all the time. Not like bare feet, but definitely shoes. So I myself, if I see somebody wearing a really unique or a pair of shoes that I know of, I like am so excited to go and talk to them, and it starts really cool and unique, interesting conversation. So you made that comment about like the physical appearance of people or whatever that is. It's literally could be, a bag that you may have, a pair of shoes that you wear, or a hat that you could be wearing, something
Or
like that, right?
color in your
Or
hair. I
color
get
in
that
your hair.
all the
Yes.
time.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's so cool that like we are comfortable enough in our own interests and things like that that we can really approach people in that way. So this
Well,
week we
there's
talked. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
sorry, I just wanted to
Yeah.
interject with a story, short one,
Yeah.
because once upon a time, a friend of mine was really excited about the New Yorker.
Hmm.
And if you subscribe to the New Yorker, you'd get a tote bag with the New Yorker logo on it.
Hmm.
And apparently, because I'm way out of it, because I'm perhaps a bit older and wiser, but perhaps what I learned though is that this is something that a lot of the younger generation would look forward to, and they would literally subscribe to the New Yorker just to receive this tote, and then basically unsubscribe afterwards, the necessary time to get this tote.
Hmm.
And then ever since I learned that, I've seen this tote everywhere. And I have approached a few people asking them, hey, did you get that from subscribing to The New Yorker? And the answer is always yes. And they're
Hmm.
always so happy that I have noticed this tote about them because
Hmm.
The New Yorker is it's a classy, it is a more sophisticated, magazine.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's just it's crazy if you can keep your ear to the kind of to the street and kind of
Hmm.
understand about pop culture or things that would stick out.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
What a cool story, and I think that now we're all going to be seeing New Yorker totes everywhere we go, and it's that whole it's the whole philosophy of red car syndrome, right? Like when we think about red cars, we see red cars, and so cool to think that, and think of how that just as it's a piece of fabric with some ink on it, like that sparks conversations and could spark amazing relationships, right? So we talked in class about the fact that networking can happen in many different places. Tell us about your most unique networking experience over the past 1.5 years.
I'm going to put you guys a little bit on blast here, as the kids say. The most unique would have to be the Biz 504 networking mixer that we had in March. Unique being a good thing, not a bad thing. It did feel a little bit dystopian being forced into a room and everyone wearing name tags and kind of felt like a cattle farm. And we were forced to survive until the end. Just kidding. It was not that bad. But a very close second would have to be actually, and my real answer is the ABFI, so the Alberta Business Family Institute annual dinner celebrating the Sooner family of Durabuilt windows. It was hosted by the Alberta School of Business very own Matt Knight, who was the person that I went to Europe with in the summertime for a course. But it was a fantastic networking event. It was held at a hotel downtown. There was over 400 people. I had to, so as I was driving there, I had to park far away in an underground parking lot. As I approached the parking meter, I was taking a long time because my card was not working, of course, and there was someone standing behind me waiting. So I turned around, I apologized. He said it was okay. We were both in suits. There was also a rodeo in town, like an actual rodeo. So he, kind of guessed that I wasn't there for that, considering we were both in suits. So he said, "Oh, do you happen to be here for the event tonight, the ABFI event?" And I said, "Yes, I actually am. So maybe I'll see you in there because my payment had gone through." Sure enough, later on in the evening, we're at the event. I see him walking by. We both recognize each other. Oh, hey, I never got to introduce myself. I'm Joe. Oh, I'm so and so. What brings you here? And it was the perfect example of a networking event, and that was unique for me because I've had a lot of networking events in the school. This was perhaps the first professional one where it's not. There was a few classmates that were at this event, but it was mostly complete strangers in a very professional setting. And it was my chance to really take what I've learned from the MBA and from you guys kind of to the next level and see how successful I could be.
Mm. And you offer something really interesting. The memory from that event, professional people in suits. This is like real world networking, if you will, right? Take your skills out there. Your memory is the person that you ran into in the parking garage and how you connected later. Like those little nuanced connections that don't seem to be fit the professional mold, but that's who stands out. And that's who you were able to connect with probably quicker than somebody else that you had to walk up to and kind of cold talk to. You'd already had a connection, but a random one. I shared the same story and I'll share it really, really quickly. At a very large event, I stood in line for coffee. The gentleman behind me and I started talking about mountain biking because I can talk cycling anywhere. We talked about mountain biking for 15 minutes for me to realize later that he was the COO of Jamin Builders, and I could connect him with a student that happened to be with us who had experience in construction and solar panels. Like totally random, nothing to do with professional to create that first kind of sort of connection. And so how can we do that? Right? We think networking is all professional. It's not. It's really not. And you talked about a really interesting flavor of your networking, and I think that's your travel. You've talked about international travel. You've had an opportunity to go internationally with school, the class. Tell us how that's factored into networking for you.
Absolutely. There's so much curiosity from both sides when you travel. That's like the ultimate test as to how many people, where, when, why, what, all the why or W's as to, what am I doing here? When you're in a foreign land, there is a commonality that has brought you both to that same destination, but there's also a lot of differences. And one thing that was taught to us by Paul and Tiffany, our awesome hosts for this podcast, is is to tell a story about yourself, and be efficient. So when you're traveling, you get to quickly practice a short story about yourself as to who you are, what you're doing there, and what you're hoping to accomplish on this trip or whatever you're doing there. And you get to practice and you get to do that over and over with many, many random people. And it's a great way to practice. And that's one thing that I can take back with me when I'm back here and continuing to network. And that is telling a story.
Mhm. You know, Joe, I think as someone walks by my window singing a song, I couldn't even believe that that was happening. I am going to move into, I loved how you talked about storytelling, and I loved how you talked about the part of storytelling with relationship building. There is a tactical side of networking, and there is a difference between building relationships from warm calls or warm introductions to these cold calls, these cold introductions. Tell us a bit of how you're using both of these and to what effect.
So I recently made a list of all of the warm people in my life, and it's long. It's there's been a variety of people that I've met over the years that I could easily or more comfortably reach out to and strike up a conversation. And that's awesome. That's great. But it only covers about 80% of what I'm looking for in my network. These are industries or areas of my life that I've already been in. I've already crossed that path, and that's how I've networked with these people. The remaining 20% is that void, and that's what I need to fill with a cold call. And it's not a pretty word. I don't. There might be the odd person that gets joy from cold calling, I'm 50-50 on it. It is exciting. Um, but that 20% of cold calling, that is to kind of network with organizations or industries or people that I don't have a branch to reach out to, and have that warm call. And there's going to be a much higher failure rate, as to, some people just might not, they might ignore you, they might not just give you the time of day, they might be really busy. But that cold calling is really tactical in kind of extending the network beyond what you're comfortable with and beyond the warm connections. And it can be worth so much more if you actually do kind of push through and make that connection.
I appreciate what I heard in there is that cold calling takes more resilience. It takes the ability to be ghosted, to say no, to just all of the things that kind of come with cold calling. But if you can practice like resilience and grit, understanding the value behind it, that it can be really powerful. But that success rate, you got expectations. You just set us expectations, right? Not everybody is going to respond back in that circumstance. Cold or warm doesn't matter. Preparation is probably helpful in both ways, but we all prep differently for networking events. And I would say we probably prep depending on where we're going and what we're doing. But tell us a little bit about how you prepare for networking. Super prayer, preparer, winger, something in the middle. What do you do?
I would say I'm somewhere in the middle. I do like to prepare, obviously, and it's very helpful to prepare. There's uh, even just small little things like looking in the mirror and practicing a quick short hello and how you even shake a hand. That could be a great reminder. And then preparing with the sports, weather, industry talk, anything that could help you possibly have some sort of um, uh, strategy for when you meet these people. If it's completely cold or random, then you also need to prepare how to react in the moment. And I also I prefer. I mean, I prepared for this podcast, but there's something fun actually about being reactive in the moment
Mhm.
and being like, oh yeah, you know what? I just remembered something here. I'd like to share this. So
Yeah.
somewhere in between.
Yeah. It's really cool that you say that, Joe. And when I think about it, we have these old faithfuls of, how about this weather we're having? Well, we live in Edmonton. The weather's awful all the time. Like, why talk about something that's negative?
All right, Mr.
for some
Pessimistic
for
Weather.
some people that like the cold
Hang
weather,
on.
they yeah. But and the local sports team and things like that. But the thing I love is when you told the story about the person you met at the parking garage at the pay meter and things like that. It's sorry, this is credit card takes forever to process, and you met them, and what brings you to the event, things like that. That can be a little bit more holistic and lead to a better conversation, right? And kind of go from there. But when we think about small talk, so a lot of people dread small talk. When we brought this up in class, you could see people's eyes roll back into their head to be like, this is awful. What are some of your go-to topics for things revolving around small talk?
Oh, geez, it really depends on the situation. I practice trying to read people. When I first met you, Paul, extremely tall, cool, flashy shoes, shares a similar haircut. These are things that I could tap into. And I have no shame talking about any kind of small talk. I like to channel my inner Larry David, like from Curb Your Enthusiasm, because I find it hilarious how he's able to just take any scenario or any situation and have some kind of commentary on it. And that for me, that's my small talk. Sometimes it might come across as weird. I like to throw in a little bit of weird in, even if in a professional setting. I think it kind of breaks down barriers or tensions that might be there. So I find a lot of joy in that. But I mean, other than what I mentioned before in terms of current events, sports, industry chat, it's just the typical stuff. Anything that can kind of help break the ice.
I'm going to reframe weird for you. I like the word quirky because it's memorable. I mean, weird too, sure, I'll own weird, but people who aren't, who don't have a little bit of a flair of something, just aren't memorable. And so own the weird, own the quirk, own the awkward. And I was listening to a podcast the other day where somebody actually defended small talk, and it was interesting that we humans connect on things. If you don't know someone, you have to go through small talk to find the connection. If you don't, you do not find connections. And so it's how we do it. And is there an art to it? Like you said, can you have a running commentary on everything? To be able to create that. But without it, we don't find connections. And without connection, we don't build relationships. So necessary evil, maybe, but if you can reframe like you did to say, it's kind of fun actually to find those pieces. I love that. All right, what advice do you have? You came into this with some comfort. You have grown, found different ways to do it. So for those that are kind of back at starting this game of networking, what would you tell them?
My advice, and this is something that I've been working on myself, and I've spoken with Paul since he's my career coach, is to, well, there's a few steps to this. So this is going to be a little bit of a longer answer, if that's okay.
Go for it.
But yeah, so one thing that I found for myself is sometimes I mirror the reaction of whoever's in front of me. So if I am meeting someone for the first time and I'm coming in, hey, how's it going? Great to meet you. I'm Joe, blah, blah, blah. And then their answer is a very stone cold faced, yes, nice to meet you. I'm so and so. It's not it's not that they're unhappy to be there. That's just how they are. Sometimes I mirror that energy, and that's not who I am. And that's something that I've really been working on. Um, and one way to work on that is by practicing. So it is okay to look in the mirror and just have a conversation with yourself, and then translate that to when you're speaking with someone in the human world or virtually. Just imagine your face on them and then just talk to yourself and have this conversation. I'm doing it right now with Paul's face, and it's kind of easy because we both kind of look similar. So it's easy to kind of have that fun conversation with yourself. There's also this other thing called artificial intelligence that you could also have great conversations with and practice just how to go along through a conversation. I think on some of them on your phone, you can talk to it instead of typing, and it will answer back with a voice. And I think that is huge, huge to practice with that. You can practice in person, especially if I'm giving advice to the first years. You can go back and practice with your classmates. That's a pretty risk-free way. But if you can't, or even if you're having the jitters, networking with your classmates, use a mirror, talk to yourself, or use something like AI and practice.
Crazy. It's not just Paul and I that say these things work. Other people say these things work. I love it, Joe. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of the tips and tricks. We could spend some time here, but it's time to get to lightning round. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, let's do
Let's
it.
do it.
Okay. What, three quick questions, three gut answers. What about your career has given you the biggest boost?
There's been lots, but where I'm on this podcast, I'm very happy to be here. There's two people sitting in front of me virtually uh, that have been the biggest boost. So I'd say the biggest boost is having, and this is apart from the MBA. It's amazing that you guys have been included into the program. All of my advice has been secondhand. So to actually be able to get firsthand experience and ask my questions that I have about job searching, interviewing, et cetera, from you guys. Get a career coach. It's 100% worth it. I wish I did it sooner. Yes,
All right, we're taking that as a snippet to promote us. Thank you very much. All right, what do you wish you had learned sooner?
In terms of my career?
Whatever comes to mind.
Okay, well, after 12, 13 years of working, yes, your grades, your title, your performance management reviews, as long as it's not a needs more work. There's usually it's a category of three. So as long as you're in the upper two, none of that matters. It really doesn't. If you want to get ahead, if you want to move, if you want to focus or develop more in a certain role, it's the networking that will get you there.
Ah,
Nothing else matters.
there's full circle. All right. Service is really important to Paul and I. So we're always curious to hear how service is going to show up for you next week.
Service. Something that I think is very important to always give back. One thing that I haven't done well in my first year, that these new first years have. So props and shout out to them for doing this. Is I've had 3 or 4 people come up to me from the first years, strike up a conversation, and then ask for my number at the end. With the end goal of, hey, if I ever have any questions about courses or job experiences or life experience, could I text you? And the answer is yes. And on a weekly basis now, since the beginning of from September to now, on a weekly basis, one of them at a minimum, has been reaching out and asking, hey, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the career coaches? How can I best utilize them? Or what are your thoughts on these new courses for the spring and summer? Or what are your thoughts on et cetera, et cetera? So my service will be helping the first years navigate this crazy thing called the NBA.
What a great service. Thank you for doing that. All right, Paul. Paul's random question.
Okay, Joe. I was looking forward to having Joe on, and I have been for 60 episodes. I think Joe and I get along really well. We have fun conversations. You, Joe, are the first person that is going to get 2 random questions from Paul. And so you have to be really quick with your answers. The first question, and I'm going to ask both of them, and then you can answer both of them. The first question is, where in the world do you hope to travel next? I know travel is a big thing for Joe and new experiences are big for Joe. So where are you going to travel next? And the word next. What is next for Joe? What is going to happen for Joe in the next little bit when the NBA is over?
Whew. Okay, great questions. Thank you for asking them. Next for me, or the next place I'm going to travel to, is Mexico. I have networked successfully in my MBA program with 2 fantastic, smart, fun classmates that are from Mexico. I think you know who I'm talking about. And we have decided and have chosen to, and they have invited me very kindly into their homes to show me a piece of their culture and to show me their homeland. So yeah, the next trip is Mexico. I am very excited. And yeah, there's a few festivals and farms and maybe some pecan farms that we're planning to go to. So I'm super excited. And next for me, there is some travel. There's obviously getting back to my social life after all, school is over, and kind of getting back to how I was pre entering the MBA. But it's also finding a new role and really just focusing on that and trying to bring everything that I've learned and experienced over the past few decades, without revealing anything specific about my age, but bring that all together with obviously the MBA being the last, the greatest thing I've done most recently, and just bring that all together to kind of move on with my life.
Cool. Joe, when Paul and I talked about, who would be really great to have on for networking, the list was short and you topped it on who has done it well, who has been in a similar situation, has done this well, and has set themselves up for a really strong kind of exit out of the MBA. And you were kind of the first person that we thought of. And there's a reason you have offered such great experience coming in. Sure, you came in with a comfort with networking, but we've also seen you grow. and push yourself and be uncomfortable and get involved and go to different festivals and things that you probably didn't have any experience with, but your curiosity took you there, and how you've leaned into understanding truly even more how relationships are such a big piece of the MBA and post, just really in life as a human, truly. Thank you for being a great human. Thank you for being a fun human to be around. Thank you for supporting our first years, your cohort, and for being here.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. That's yeah, very kind of you. I still feel like obviously there's more work to be done. So I appreciate you thinking of me, and obviously this having you two in my network for a long time is such a blessing, and I really look forward to staying in contact with you guys after I graduate, because I really
Please
do
do.
plan on. So you're not getting rid of me.
That's okay. We will gladly stay connected. Thank you so much, Joe.
Thank you.
All right, key takeaways. And I just so appreciated what he talked about being weird, because I feel like I'm weird in some. Quirky's a great reframe, sure. Awkward. My goodness, we all feel a little wobbly going into networking. And I think rather than worrying about it, spending energy, just did I say the right thing? Just own the weird, own the awkward, own the nerves, talk about them. They're probably nervous too. Like, own that about yourself, and you will come across so incredibly more authentic and comfortable. And I think it actually even breeds better connections. So just own it.
Yeah.
I liked that.
The word unique comes up to me, and if we can own our uniqueness, there is such special power in that. So that's amazing. For me, I am a big believer in the world of storytelling and in the world of, being able to catch people's attention through story. Joe, through this podcast, 2 or 3 amazing stories. I can only, the panic of sitting in front of one of those pay stations in an underground parkade,
somebody
being like,
behind
please
you.
go through fast. Like you're nervous, you're putting in your license plate number, all of these things. And, storytelling is such a beautiful art. And, luckily we get to talk about that next week with our students, but it takes a ton of practice. And I know Joe, I've known him for a year and a half, and it's been a real blessing to know him and to watch him work on his storytelling skills and understand how to tell a great story. Like awesome. So really cool.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
All right. So on that note, storytelling is up next week. Another just important life skill. I don't care where you are and who you are. Storytelling and building relationships, 2 of the most core skill sets. So we will talk about that next week. See ya.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Career Boosters podcast. We hope you had a blast. Yeah, we know that's corny. Catch you next time, and remember to subscribe wherever you enjoy podcasts.